we are all observing multiple consolidation happening in the industry. These are even reinforced by the additional revenues generated during the pandemic, where major service providers like shipping lines especially have very much increased their profit and cash reserves, opening new possibilities for further vertical and horizontal integration. So this end-to-end supply chain landscape could then change in the context where shippers are still looking for further optimization around cost, digitization, and sustainability, while trying to still improve their agility to face crisis, right? So while there can be many reasons behind this consolidation, we will try to answer some of the questions on how it could affect the business for the shippers. Right, so starting with Kendrick, and maybe you can give us a bit of context. So what is happening currently in the industry? Give us some example of the current consolidation happening currently.
Hi, I'm Kendrick from Western Digital. Yeah, what we see at the integration or acquisition area is really on vertical, right? We see MERS buying air cargo, we're seeing CMA buying like SIVA and so on. So these are vertical, not much overlap. They could do a lot of cross-selling, yeah. But what we observe as well, of course, is ongoing horizontal organic growth, where you see DSV buying Panalpina, then buy Agility. So the concern from our shippers' perspective, it's really how do they integrate well? Are they getting the right people, the best people to handle our shipments, right? So the question, of course, is bigger always better? So from a shipper's perspective, we are all into people service, where we deal very closely with account managers, we deal very closely with rapport, and not all the time bigger is naturally better. Yeah, so that's my perspective, and I'll hand over to maybe Scott or.
Yeah, do you want to add up anything?
I remember presenting at a LogiSYM many years ago, maybe not 10 years ago or whenever it started, but a good number of years ago, where I spoke a little bit about there's too many solution providers in the scope of the world, and shippers had a tough choice of choosing. So at that time, I suggested that they hurry up and start doing some M&A to make the choice a little bit easier for everyone. So here we are. Certainly, COVID's become a catalyst now, where it's accelerated some of the M&A activity and some of the weaker companies being acquired and bought over. There's also a lot of venture capital right now in the industry because there's money to be made. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. There's a lot happening, and it still will happen. It didn't start 2 years ago, as Marcus mentioned. It was 4, 5, 6 years ago we started to see some of the first moves. So for a shipper, we're always concerned when there's too many options, and now we're probably becoming concerned there might not be enough options in the future. So we'll see, but we'll discuss a little bit more on that.
Right, so Jason, with your consulting background, can you tell us what is the driver of this consolidation right now?
Right, my name is Jason Chang. I am a consultant. So among the panel here, I'm the only non-shipper. So I'm the guy that you either curse or bless, because I help the M&A side. We see there are two key categories of buyers in this market, one being the shipping lines, the other one being the operating companies. Shipping lines, as we know, they only made about $190 billion last year. So that's a record earning by any means. Flush with cash, they decided to go out to the market to look for anything. Yeah? And vertical integration, as Kendrick said, seemed like the logical way to go. In the past, you could make an offer, say, ship with me. Now you ship with me, truck with me, do everything with me, or else. Yeah? Then the other, then the other line of thinking is that they teach this a lot in MBA schools. They say that Amazon is not an online seller. They are a transportation company. They are a logistics company. So in that sort of mindset, a lot of VCs are looking at buying up all these assets in order to pair up with the physical infrastructure with the online infrastructure to be able to serve their clients or to try to corner the market. But we'll come more to this point later on. Yeah.
Right, thank you. So you think that there is a vision to do end-to-end service providing by driving a bit this consolidation, vertical consolidation. So, Scott, why is it happening now and not before? Why especially now?
Well, I think COVID has become a catalyst as with all the disruption and the capacity constraints in the market, the misalignment where equipment is, where ports are congested due to shutdowns, where trucking and drivers are unavailable. It's created a huge misalignment, which has created a seller's market to some extent. However, it did happen a little bit before COVID started, and that was just because there was too many players in the market. There was too many, and not all could exist. And that's just a natural supply and demand, natural economy of how businesses go over time. So I think it has started to become public news, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, where the man on the street knows what's happening now. A few years before that, it actually started to really happen and things started to come in. The one that concerns me is the venture capital investment that's coming into the playing field as well, where there's money to be made, and as long as they can, they'll continue to try to make it a seller's market to keep those profits up. So I don't think this is the last we'll see of it. I think you'll see more and more in the next few years, but not to a stage where, and I hope governments will intervene or somehow intervene, I'm not sure how, where we don't end up in a monopolistic market and prices stay sky high. Because at the end of the day, you guys will be paying for that. I will be paying for that, you'll be paying for that, and the end consumer price of products and services.
Right, thank you. So then coming to the impact for the shippers themselves, because they are the one facing these changes in the market. So with maybe different types of interlocutor that we are introducing with new companies facing. So Stephen, can you tell us what you see as a positive and negative impact for the shippers?
Well, I'm Stephen from Denso. I think first of all, people look at 190 billion shipping line made last year. What they didn't know that is the combined total of 7-year profit before that. Can you imagine a company having 1 windfall year and 7 bad years? So that is the background we need to understand. Of course, we are not happy with that windfall. Nobody likes that. But I think we have to look at the positive side of it. I think sustainability is one very key driver. Remember, most of this M&A started due to dear Hanjin failing, and everybody was in panic station. Everybody was worried. There was major consolidation even before COVID started. So this is just a natural step forward. But as Scott mentioned, with the venture capitalists coming in, so it's a bit concerning. But I would say that overall, if you know how to tap on the shipping line strategy and know how to work with them, 2 key drivers you can get out of them is number one, in terms of efficiency. I think you don't want to work with 15 shipping lines or 22 forwarders. It's going to be too complicated. You need to find a right balance of scale versus merit. The second thing is actually efficiency, digitalization. I think one of the things that people don't mention is the drive towards digitalization in the last 3 years has really skyrocketed. You know, in the past, if you would submit a manual EDI, manual declaration, they will accept it. Now they tell you, please go online, do your booking online. But if you take it positively, that helps you if you do a systematic approach. You can reduce your manual operation as well. So it's not all bad news, I would argue, but you just need to understand whether it fits for your purpose or not. Yeah, back to you, Adrian.
So you're seeing increase in efficiency, better sustainability overall. Do you, Kendrick, Jason, and Scott share that vision as well on these positive aspects of this consolidation?
Okay, I take it from that perspective. I've been through quite a lot of mergers, acquisition, and my main providers will be the logistics. The key thing that when I talk to CEOs and the head of products and all that, the main thing that they are focused on is really on building synergies, right? Synergies, and number 2, how to structure their business and do it fast. Okay, so speed is of the essence for such integration. But of course, not all companies do it well. They may not know the magic formula, but from our shippers' perspective, the key is really the people, right? Go back into the people and the people serving the various customers, knowing the customers need to be retained to continue improving. And that's towards the operational excellence that I always sort of strive upon when selecting a provider. Scott?
Yeah, and I think this was mentioned in the shipper roundtable at lunchtime that LSP is not logistics service provider, it's a logistics solution provider. And those solutions are super critical. So whether there's one supplier or 100 suppliers out there, it's a solution that fits the business as a shipper that you're looking for. And people know how to match that. Technology will help, digitization will help with the operations and the back office and making those aspects more efficient. But if you match the wrong solution to your business, you're going to have a lot of problems no matter what the digital agenda is. So I think digitization today is a given. If we're not doing it today, or if you're not doing it today in your company, there's plenty of software providers around in the hall, so please go and see them. But yeah, it's a given, but we still need to find the solutions. The M&A activity that we're having, I hope that this brings more focused solutions to shippers, more focused solutions to our needs. But as a shipper, we also need to be very good, as Kendrick mentioned, at communicating out the synergies and the problems we have so that we can match those solutions.
So good opportunities to improve efficiency and around the solution and the overall service offered. Do you see the freight rate evolving in the coming years or months, and what could cause this change? Jason, maybe.
Okay, so macro topic. Freight rates, it's been high, we all know that. But what has been the trigger? So we read a lot of the media in terms of what they say, but I think the constant that we can all agree is that it's because of disruption. The supply-demand balance didn't go out of whack. It's just that we had disruptions from COVID, from Suez Canal blockage, from all the truckers not being able to take the cargo out from the port. But the question is, going forward, what would change? What would structurally change to cause the freight rates to go down, hopefully? Yeah. So we can see there's an overhang of about 25% of shipping capacity coming online in the coming years. That's one. Secondly, the fact that we're all in this room, the fact that the 5 of us on stage without a mask is progress. A year ago, this is not possible. We probably will see China opening up finally by the end of the year. Then that will unlock the last markets. That means the disruptions should come down. Touch wood. Yeah? So with all that in mind, things should go back to a stage where there's more market-driven. Pricing will be more aggressive. The one thing that we do find surprising that has happened before during these periods where there's high profit, but that's not happened now, is that there are no new entrants. No one started a shipping line, no one started a new company. So that's strange for us. Yeah, but if any of you out there are doing it, do let us know.
Just can I add to that, Jason? So I think there are new entrants, but we're not seeing them in a traditional format. So you are seeing companies like the New York Shipping Exchange who are providing a different brokerage type platform to match the needs of a shipper and the wants of a liner. So I don't think we'll see new startups of traditional logistics companies, but we'll see a lot of enablers, companies that are enabling a traditional and I'd almost say commodity market. So apologies for my English, it's terrible.
Good point.
Right. So if we don't see too many new enter, we are going towards maybe a more monopolistic or market with less players on the market. What are the concerns from the shippers to see that consolidation happening further? Maybe Stephen, you want to answer?
Well, I think we have to watch out while we try and get the technical and the technology benefit from this consolidation. One thing we don't want is definitely market power shifting to the shipping liners, and we are out of track with it. I think how many of you had heard of the 3PLs coming to you and saying, that's the rate I can give you, diamond rate, jubilee rate, whatever you call it. We don't want to hear that word, but that's a reality at this moment. But as Jason correctly mentioned, it's a temporary situation. How long? It really depends on the disruptions. But really, for us, we need to watch out for the pitfalls where the shipping lines start to corner the market. Well, the good news is Europe should be reviewing the block exemption resumption next year. I know a lot of bodies in America and Europe are really lobbying for this kind of block exemption to be removed. I think at the moment, if you ship to America, Trans-Pacific, there's only that 3 strings that you can work on, three alliances, and they dominate more than 80% of the market. So essentially, you have no choice. Your choice between A, B, and C is as good as none. But I think if with some innovation, even contract companies like NICEX, I think it's good solutions for us to look at to understand what is available out there. So a lot of us will have to do more homework to study what's available in the market. Of course, a good LSP, a solution provider, not a service provider, hopefully, will give you a lot of benefit on that. But I think we have to go to the market, understand what's in the market, and develop new solutions for this current situation.
So any other comments on this possible monopolistic position from some of the providers? Scott, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope we don't get to a situation where it becomes a policy issue, where there's no competition in the market anymore. I don't think it can get to that stage. I think with this industry, there's enough understanding of how much it's impacted the last couple of years that we can't have no competition. We need competition. But you can ask which government's going to actually legislate if it does come to this. So are we talking major lanes? Because the shipping lines will just switch their trade to go east-west, not west-east, or go the other way around the world. But more than that, it's not just ocean shipping, it's air freight, it's road, it's rail. If these things become monopolistic, then as a consumer, not just as a shipper, but as a consumer, and what we're paying for the price of Mentos and water and these type of things is going to skyrocket. So I don't think that will happen. I don't think it can happen.
So do you think overall this consolidation may improve the relationship between the shipper, the carriers, and service provider eventually?
Yes, and no.
No.
I'll say yes because, again, we are focusing our conversations and problems with a solution provider that's going to hopefully provide solutions, not just product. So I think there's less to talk to, there's less in the market, there's less cloud, there's less fog, if you'd like. So we're actually a little bit more clean cut. And then I'd say no, and back to Kendrick's point at the start, because it's too big. So then, oh well, we don't need to push any solutions. We've got enough products that cover 80% of the market. But I'm the one shipper, and I'm sure there's plenty of shippers in here. You're the one that has the most unique problem. We all do. And there's not a product out there that can solve our issues the way we want it. So I think from that part, we're still going to live in the same world where we want everything for everything as a shipper and not pay much. But at the same time, I think it creates a lot more focus in who we actually having these conversations with. And that helps.
Right. Kendrick, you want to add up on that?
Yeah. It's the fact that when companies integrate, just for hypothetically, right? DSV, Agility, let's say Western Digital uses both, and 50-50. Now, do I allow them to single source? Right? The question will be no. I have to build my own resilience. I have to overcome my own risk. You hear of cyber attacks, you hear about issues that cannot be solved, right? So I will not put an egg in the same basket. And so those that integrate may not get a full business anymore. They may lose them. And that's a point about, is bigger always bigger? Possibly not. Right, so the focus is really on, again, building the right solutions for the shippers and knowing how the customer segmentation is, understanding our products, understanding how we ship things better. Yeah.
Right, so let me turn to the audience. So would you have any question regarding the expectation that you may have from these consolidations? Yeah.
Ladies first. Sorry.
So I'm Charmaine from Johnson Controls. When we talk about M&A, all about efficiency, right? But what we see far from realities, right? If you talk about CVAR and CMAs, right? Demco and MERS, right? So we're expecting in the shipper perspective, when I have CVAR, I could have a space, a capacities for me, right? So because it's a one company when we look at it, right? As far from the reality that we see that, okay, either the arm of the supply chain are competing against the shipping line, right? And even CVAR is engaging with one or, or MERS, right? So how do you see that the combination is M&A will bring the benefit for the shipper? This is one. My second question is, if you look at Singapore itself, the PSA and the BDP, right? Where do you see that with the collaboration with the port and the logistic arm will bring a benefit? Because we see a lot of port congestion everywhere, right? To some extent, these two synergies should bring something, but I don't see that, right? So maybe a comments or, from the panels on these two questions.
Let me take the first part first, right? I use CMA. Sorry, I use CVAR, right, Marcus? Yeah. Thanks. So yes, they were acquired by CMA, but we don't hear them saying, "Oh, all my containers are from CMA." But there are some leverage, which, for example, I do road freight with CVAR, and at the back of their support is containers. They have a huge inventory of containers to support them through the road network between, you can talk about from Malaysia, Thailand to China and Hong Kong, right? So in that sense, there is some synergies that they could bring to the table. That's what I think. But yet again, CMA as a shipping line may not support so much on, CVAR logistics to supply. It's the same question, why you think UPS Supply Chain Solutions, I hope there's no UPS here, but UPS Supply Chain Solutions are not really cross-selling to the same customers as UPS Express, right? So they are one company, but they have two different heads or two different brains. Yeah. So I take the first question. Anybody? Second question? Oh.
Yeah, I can have a crack at the second question. It's a good question. I think it will help because if we look at, a merger and acquisition in the logistics industry, it's part of a supply chain. So we've got to be very, very careful to say that this is the I think we've heard it a couple of times, the tail wagging the dog. So the ports play a huge role, the governments play a huge role in allowing trade to facilitate. So when a port is able to talk to less players that are coming to use their facilities and their services, it becomes a cleaner process, hopefully, and more efficient. So I think there's some benefit there. Having said that, when seller markets start to fall out, the money starts to go away, the venture capital starts to disappear, I think you're going to be left with a bit of a graveyard in some of these ports. And then you'll find that governments are starting to become a little bit aggressive in what they do. And that could be 10 years down the track, I don't know. But so I think at the moment we can see some benefits coming from integration, that the ports don't have to talk to as many people and work and trade with as many people or many companies. But the flip side, in 10 years, if we're sitting there having the same conversation, it could be very much opposite. And that's the ebbs and flows of an industry, of any trade, any business. So we're just in a very interesting part of it right now.
Well, maybe I will share a bit about the first question. I think if you're going to work with 3PL, I wouldn't want to go micro into which vessel carrier they're going to use. I want them to be a solution provider. They are supposed to find me a vessel. I don't care if it's CMA or whoever it is on. Just get me the container. I think the key thing is for me upfront, I will actually request a service provider to give me alternative. If A is not available, what's B? That I should know upfront so I can plan upfront. I think that is more resilient rather than cross a finger and hope they call their big brother for support. Honestly, the big brother doesn't support their little brother. If anything, they are always the last person in charge because I got better customer out there, better paying customer. If I can get diamond rate, why would I support people? I think that is a better solution is to talk to a logistics service provider or solution provider and ask them for alternative. That would be a better forward-thinking way. Yep.
Another question, you had one. Yeah.
So a couple of themes here that continue to be discussed are consolidations, M&As, as well as the criticality of solutions that are provided by LSPs. So this is not a leading question, and I hope it's not redundant, but I would like to know from your perspective as shippers, how has either the quality or the quantity of the solutions that are being provided changed with the condensing market? So again, just because there are less providers available or that things are becoming consolidated doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be that quality is affected in a positive or negative way. It also doesn't necessarily mean that there have to be less solutions. As Kendrick just mentioned, multiple mergers and so on can lead to synergy in new solutions and whatnot. So would like to know from your perspective, how has the consolidation and so on of the marketplace changed the quality or the quantity of the solutions that you're seeing as shippers? And so I didn't introduce myself. My name's James from Cargo Base. Thank you.
Kendrick? Yeah.
Me? You?
Well, I think we probably have the same answer. So, but anyway, I'll go first, and you can back me up. So, thank you, Jason. 5-6 years ago, I was asking why LSPs weren't giving me what I wanted, what I needed to provide solutions to my problems. And that was a buyer's market. And they were starting to come around saying, oh yeah, hang on, we need to start to listen to our customer a bit more. And the quality really improved of actually providing better solutions and not just another product. Okay. I think with mergers and acquisitions, we run a risk of going back to that point where we can't provide a solution for a smaller company. You need to fit in with one of our products. So I don't think the quality will improve for the smaller players, the smaller buyers. For the bigger buyers, though, yeah, of course it will improve because there's less on the market. You can focus much quicker, and they'll make solutions for you as a shipper, as a buyer. So I think it's a little bit yin and yang depending on the size of who you are. So I'm a small guy. Kendrick's a big guy. So.
Okay, for me, thanks for the question, James. It's not really whether it's the number of forwarders offering, right? So it's really the quality of how they are approaching the solution. Just for example, now as Western Digital, sometimes we do have the load, and we go out to carriers like Siva, and how we partner is, Siva, CMA has a flight that's going from Thailand to Europe and Europe to USA. And we want to work with these asset owners. And they come in, Siva Logistics comes in to be the broker between a CMA air freight and provide the solution. So that gives us another perspective of how they can do it, and we are always on the lookout for that, because cutting off the middleman does have certain benefits, right? You go straight and you explain the issue, your requirements, and if they are able to meet, good. What the challenges that Stefan did say is that sometimes they don't, right? They don't come with the bright solution, and that's where we struggle. And even we have too many providers, it may not come to to a good solution. Yeah, so number is not the thing, but what we really want is good solutions. No sales sort of BS, but more on a good solution out there. Stefan?
Yeah, maybe I add to Kendrick's point. I think, first of all, M&A and quality, I think we need to look at, M&A does affect quality, that's the facts, but I think, how many of you actually this year launched a tender and the shipping line telling you, I will cap your capacity at a certain amount? I think most of you, if you had run a tender more than 10,000 TEU, shipping line will tell you, I'll give you 5,000, that's it, nothing more, nothing less. Find the other 5,000 somewhere else. This has never happened. Okay, so that is not really M&A's issue. I would say that's because of market forces. They know they can get spot rates, which is double of what they can get for contract rates. So I wouldn't say that's direct repercussion M&A. I would say M&A, we need to look at the mid to longer term. What is the strategy or purpose of this M&A? At the end of the day, Maersk is trying to provide all-in service. They are trying to earn the freight cost, they are trying to earn the transportation, they are trying to earn everything. That's their purpose. It's not to cut one hand or one leg off, because they know that if they sell individual service on their own, they will be subject to competition. But if they provide a suite service and there are people who want this service, then they get the market. So it's about understanding what you want to buy, who's the best service provider out there, finding that niche and getting in, that's more important. I mean, as a production company, it's important for us to have stability. But the key thing is then, what are options available to me to create that stability? I think alternative sourcing, I will never put all my cargo into 1 or 2 or even 3 carriers. It will always be more than that. But you have to be very conscious what kind of quality you want from who. If you are going to Maersk, they will tell you what they can give you and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. But if you go to a service provider, a logistic company, they can offer you more, but you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. So flexibility, plan, you need to strike a balance between that. So what quality you want is going to be what you're going to pay. Yep.
Right, so you said it, so there is a vision to offer end-to-end services. So can the vision that all these M&As are ambitioning, can this vision meet the expectations? And can it sustain over time? So can these things really happen? Yeah.
Maybe you can.
Yeah.
Yes, it can. And no, I mean, yeah, okay, I sit on the fence. I'm a shipper, so I get concerned. Can it sustain? I don't think you can get to a point where there's no more M&A to happen in the market, because then we'll be a monopoly. But I think we'll have another few years of venture capital coming in, backing a certain provider or backing a certain shipping liner or an enabling software to go out and make some purchases. So there's a lot happening underneath the cover right now. Some of the big ones we've seen, the smaller ones on the air cargo consolidation companies or the equipment on air cargo is a big space with the belly hold coming back into the market. So yeah, it can. I don't think it's sustainable forever. It's going to have the ebbs and flows, but we're going to have a few more years of some interesting announcements on our news feeds in the morning.
Right, yeah, Jason.
Yeah, so I look at it from a macro perspective. One of the things that we look at is in the supply chain, there are the carriers, you have the port operators, then you have the transportation companies. If you count the number of options that you have for all of these, whether it's the transportation carriers or the nodes, you will realize that the one that has the fewest options is the one that's really controlling the pricing in the market. And when we talk about M&A, we go back to how long have these alliances been? More than 2 years, right? But the freight's only gone up in the last 2 or 3 years. So the alliances were there, yeah, and they have expiry date. But what's really changed is because of this pandemic and because of the disruptions, the prices have gone up. We've seen how the players within the small market, where there's no new players, are able to increase the prices. If I refer you to, for example, in Australia, in the ports, the prices are controlled, so they can't charge. But they can charge you a surcharge. Yeah, every couple of months, they increase the surcharge. So you try having I see some nodding heads. You try having a sandwich in the CBD, it goes up by the month. So that really hurts because there are only 2 players in practically every port, and they are surcharging every 6 months. Yeah? So where we hope to see is that there'll be new players to the market, or eventually the market players themselves will create a competition. Yeah.
Right. Would you have any advices for the procurement entities of the shippers? So maybe each of you, starting with Hendrik.
I mean, we are talking about mergers and acquisition, and just now I was focusing a lot on the people, right? And I always tell my forwarders or service providers, focus on the 4 Ps. So what are they, right? People is one of them. Proficiency, purpose, and your passion, right? So whether whoever the provider that's giving to the shippers a service, we always look at these, right? The 4 Ps. And likewise, for during mergers and acquisition, don't just focus on, if the parent company should be the one, example DSV, then DSV should be the heading one, the manager and the executive, and kick out everybody else. It should not be that way, right? It should be whoever that has the 4 Ps should be working on the customer's requirements and working towards it. So that's one of my perspectives, yeah. Jason?
Well, maybe I'll add to that. I think for mergers and acquisition, I'm hopeful because from historical lens, you look at the shipping industry, every time they have a good couple of years, they'll build a lot of vessels, they have surplus capacity, and then someone will spoil the market, and there goes, you'll go down again. I don't see that changing for the near term. I think besides this pandemic disruption, if things return to normal, I think this cycle will come back again, whereby the shipping line will mess themselves up. I think there will always be people who are going for a short-term profit and all those things. There will always be people doing that. I think that is going to happen sooner rather than later. But for the merger acquisition piece, I think the key point is, look, we are buying service of them. We can't control who they talk to, who they merge with, or what they got to do. What we can control is, who do I want to work with? What are my selection criteria? What is my needs? Therefore, who should I work with? I would rather focus on the controllables rather than what is not the uncontrollables. So instead of worrying about what Maersk is going to do to me, I ask myself a simple question. What trade lanes do I want to work with Maersk? Where is their strength? Where do I want out of them? And then from there, I'll devise my strategy to kind of counteract their M&A strategy. Of course, they'll have better bargaining power, but I don't think it's a one-sided game. We still can do something about it. It's not all lost. Yep.
I'll take this one. So my rounding off remarks is, we do see that the freight rates will come down, and when it comes down, it's going to come down fast. Yeah, because once someone, like what Stephen said, once someone decides to break ranks and starts to quote low, everything will follow suit. And when you have 25% new capacity coming on board, that needs to go somewhere. The problem is, how long is this going to last? Again, we're looking at everyone wearing masks, not wearing masks. The VCs that we mentioned earlier that are investing, they were the same VCs that sold during the subprime crisis. So they made money, they are the smart money. So they went in now, a couple of years, they should be coming out soon. Yeah. So again, look for the signs. What is China doing? When do the new capacity come on board? Yeah, and hopefully there are no other disruptions, because that's something you cannot predict. Right.
Yeah, and maybe just one last point for shippers in the room. It's back to basics. So we're in crisis. We can't weather the storm for another 2-3 years on these prices, because fundamentally that shifts everything that we do in our business. So when you get into a crisis, you go back to basics. So fundamentally, what are your absolute requirements? What are you looking for? So know them back to front, and then go out and find product in the market as best you can. And where you can't find the product, then you start to talk to the relationships or the providers that you've had long relationships with to ask for tailored solutions. If you just go in for a price negotiation, RFP, RFQ, whatever, I mean, I don't think you're weathering the storm. You just haven't changed your mindset to exist in the reality that we live in today. So for shippers, it's going to be a tough couple of years still. Your CFOs and your finance departments are going to be looking at you stupidly still, not really understanding why you can't do your job. But then find out what you need to do, what your absolutes are. Go out, find the product, or if you can't, take a good service provider.